Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something that's been generating a ton of buzz, especially if you're following the tech world.
Oh, yeah. Patrick.
It's the potential impact of Donald Trump's second term on H-1B visas.
Huge topic.
Right. And we've got this super insightful article that takes a look at those immediate reactions and predictions from immigration lawyers and tech workers right after Trump's win in 2024.
Yeah, I saw that article.
It's really timely stuff, and whether you're directly involved with H-1Bs or just curious about immigration and how it all plays into the tech landscape, you'll want to stick with us.
For sure.
So-
It's fascinating, even before we have any concrete policy changes announced, that anxiety is already out there.
Oh, absolutely.
The article mentions immigration lawyer Sophie Alcorn and how she's been flooded with calls from clients.
Wow.
It really underscores that uncertainty and sometimes fear that comes with these big policy shifts.
It makes you think, why this immediate wave of concern? What's driving it?
Well, it goes back to what happened during Trump's first term.
Mm,
The travel ban that affected those Muslim-majority countries and the extreme vetting policy.
right.
All of that created this climate of uncertainty, even fear for a lot of immigrants.
Yeah, definitely.
The article actually quotes Alcorn as saying, "I think any immigrant is afraid of Trump."
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
It is, and it reflects those very real concerns people have.
And it goes beyond just the fear of deportation, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The article points to a whole bunch of anxieties, like
Okay.
will visa renewals become harder to get?
Yeah.
Longer processing times?
Yeah.
What about H-4 visas for spouses?
Big one.
It feels like the ground is shifting and everyone's trying to figure out what it all means for them.
Exactly. And to make it even more complex,
Yeah.
Trump has sent kind of mixed signals on immigration in the past.
Oh, for sure.
On one hand, we had those campaign promises about mass deportations, cracking down on illegal immigration.
Right.
But he hasn't been totally against legal immigration either. And then there's the question of how his connections in Silicon Valley, figures like J.D. Vance and Elon Musk, will influence his stance on the H-1B program.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about the H-1B program itself.
Okay.
You're probably familiar with it, but just as a quick refresher, it's basically designed to bring highly skilled foreign workers, mostly in tech, to the U.S.
Right.
And there's a limited number of visas available each year.
Yeah.
65,000 plus an extra 20,000 for those with advanced degrees from U.S. universities.
Right.
And this is where it gets really crucial because the tech industry relies heavily on these visas to fill some pretty vital roles.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking hundreds of thousands of H-1B visa holders currently working in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's a significant chunk of the tech workforce.
Yeah.
So any major changes to the program
Right.
could have a ripple effect throughout the whole industry,
Absolutely.
from individual careers to the success of some major companies.
And we saw this play out during Trump's first term. Remember how H-1B visa denials actually spiked?
Yeah?
They hit 24% in 2018
Wow.
compared to just 6% back in 2015.
Big jump.
Huge. And even though that rate dropped back down to 2% by 2022, the possibility of a similar trend happening again is definitely causing concern.
Makes sense. It's a valid concern, especially when you consider how the demand for these visas way outweighs the limited supply.
Yeah.
It creates this super competitive environment, which makes any potential policy changes even more impactful.
The article quotes immigration lawyer Elizabeth Goss saying, and this is interesting, people are asking what's going to change, but the level of anxiety is not fever-pitched.
Right? It's like this waiting game. Everyone's holding their breath.
Exactly.
But the article does hint at some potential changes we might see.
Oh, like what?
They mention the possibility of increased scrutiny of applications, longer processing times, maybe even stricter wage requirements.
And those could have a domino effect throughout the industry.
Like hassle.
And it's not just the H-1B holder, right?
Yeah.
What about their spouse who might be working on an H-4 visa? Right.
That adds a whole other layer of complexity that was already a point of contention during Trump's previous term.
Exactly.
So if you're an H-1B holder with a spouse who's working, this is something to watch closely.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
It is. So with that in mind, let's shift gears a bit and explore some of the strategies both companies and individuals are considering as they try to navigate this whole uncertain landscape.
Good idea. So we've talked about, the anxieties, the potential challenges.
Right.
But it's actually encouraging that a lot of companies and H-1B visa holders are taking proactive steps
That's good to hear.
to try to adapt to this changing landscape.
Yeah.
The article highlights some really interesting insights from Blake Miller.
Oh, good.
He's an immigration attorney who specializes in advising companies on how to navigate these kinds of shifts.
It sounds like they're not just sitting back and waiting.
No, Not
What kind of proactive steps are we
Yeah.
talking about?
Well, one thing they're exploring is identifying employees who might be eligible for early visa renewals.
Yeah, so let's say someone got a promotion
Right.
since their last renewal.
Okay.
They might actually be able to file an amendment and renew early
I see.
and secure another 3 years on their visa.
So maximizing the time they have.
Exactly, minimizing potential disruptions down the line.
That's a smart move. Are there any other options they're looking at?
Absolutely. Another avenue is expedited green cards,
Okay.
specifically the extraordinary ability category,
Oh, wow.
which can be a faster track to permanent residency
Makes sense.
compared to the standard green card process,
Yeah.
which can often take years, especially for applicants from countries with big backlogs like India.
So what exactly does extraordinary ability entail?
It's pretty exclusive.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
You have to be able to demonstrate exceptional achievements in your field.
Right.
Think published research international awards, contributions to major projects.
Wow. So really top tier.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
The article mentions an example, AK, an Indian engineer.
Oh, yeah.
He's working on an O1 visa,
All right, another type of visa for folks with exceptional abilities.
and he's rushing to file for an expedited green card based on his lawyer's advice.
Makes sense given the uncertainty around H-1Bs.
For sure.
But here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Despite all the anxiety, he's actually quite optimistic.
Interesting.
He mentions Trump's past statement about wanting to staple a green card to every student visa, something he heard on the All In podcast.
I remember that quote.
Yeah,
So even amidst the uncertainty,
right.
there are some glimmers of hope.
Exactly. And it underscores the importance of staying informed and exploring all the options.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of options, the article talks about something else that seems counterintuitive.
What's that?
Traveling home for visa renewals.
Why would you advise people to leave the country when there's so much uncertainty about getting back in?
Right. It seems risky.
Yeah.
So what's the logic there?
It's about gaining flexibility.
Yeah.
By renewing their visas abroad, H-1B holders get a fresh stamp in their passport, which gives them more freedom to travel internationally for the next few years.
So it's a way to kind of hedge
Yeah.
against potential disruptions like sudden travel bans or delays at the State Department.
Exactly.
And maintain some control over their travel options.
Precisely. It's all about being prepared
Okay.
for different scenarios.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the article also raises a point about the impact on companies themselves.
Right.
It doesn't explicitly say that companies are rethinking hiring foreign workers, but it does highlight the possibility.
It's definitely on their minds.
So what leads them to believe that companies might be hesitant?
Well, with the increased scrutiny, the potentially longer processing times,
Yeah.
and the general uncertainty surrounding the H-1B program,
Right.
it's not unreasonable to think that some companies might be more cautious.
Yeah, I can see that.
They'll have to weigh the benefits of hiring foreign talent against the complexities and uncertainties of the visa process.
And that's a significant shift that could have big implications
It-
for the tech industry and the global competition for talent.
Right.
Because Silicon Valley and other tech hubs,
Yeah,
they thrive on attracting the best and brightest from all over the world.
absolutely.
So any hesitation in hiring foreign-born workers
Right.
could really hinder innovation and growth.
And the article emphasizes this by reminding us that the H-1B program
Yeah.
is often used as a political football,
It's true.
subject to shifting political winds and, contrasting viewpoints.
It generates strong opinions on both sides.
It does.
Some see it as vital for innovation.
Right. Bringing in skilled workers, driving economic growth.
Others criticize it for potentially displacing American workers.
Yeah, it's a classic dilemma.
And it's one that's probably going to intensify
Well,
under a second Trump administration.
for sure.
So it sounds like the future of the H-1B visa program under Trump is really uncertain.
Yeah,
But there's also this sense of determination to adapt and explore every option.
exactly. It's a dynamic situation.
It is.
That will definitely have big consequences for individuals, companies, and the tech landscape as a whole.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I think it's clear that we're in a period of anxiety, but also cautious optimism.
A good way to put it.
It's a time for strategic planning and staying informed.
Absolutely.
But I'm also curious about the broader implications.
Like what?
How might the future of the H-1B program affect the global competition for tech talent?
That's a great question, and one that deserves further exploration.
Yeah, that's a big question. So we've talked about the anxieties, the potential changes, the steps people are taking. But as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's time to step back and look at the bigger picture. How might the future of the H-1B program affect the global competition for tech talent? Will the U.S. stay on top as a magnet for the best and brightest? Or will other countries start to attract those who are looking for opportunity and stability?
That's the key question. If the U.S. makes it much harder for foreign tech workers to come and work here, it's very likely that other countries with more open policies will benefit. We're already seeing places like Canada, Australia, some European countries actively trying to get skilled workers from around the world.
It makes you wonder if the U.S. might lose its edge if it's harder for companies to get global talent.
It's a real risk. Silicon Valley and other U.S. tech hubs have thrived because they can pull in talent from everywhere. This flow of skilled people has really fueled innovation and economic growth. If that environment becomes less welcoming, it's easy to imagine some of that talent going elsewhere.
It also raises questions about American workers. Some people argue that the H-1B program takes jobs away from Americans and lowers wages. Others say it fills gaps in skills we need and ultimately helps the whole economy.
It's complicated with good points on both sides, and it's something we'll probably keep debating for a while. But I think it's important to remember that talent is global. In a world where innovation is so important, the countries that can attract and keep the best talent will be the ones that succeed.
That's a great point. So as we finish up our look at the potential impact of a second Trump term on H-1B visas, what are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
Well, first, I think it's crucial to acknowledge that anxiety and uncertainty that a lot of immigrants and H-1B visa holders are feeling right now, it comes from past experiences and the unpredictable nature of politics.
Definitely. And while the future might seem uncertain, it's also a time to plan ahead. We've discussed some of the things companies and individuals are doing, like early visa renewals and expedited green card options.
Exactly. Being informed, being prepared, and looking at all the possibilities.
And recognizing that these policy decisions have a wider impact. The H-1B program is just one part of a much larger issue that affects global talent, flows innovation, and economic competition.
It really boils down to the future of the tech industry, maybe even the future of the U.S. economy, is tied to the policies we choose and the decisions we make about immigration and global talent.
So to our listeners out there, we encourage you to stay informed, stay engaged, and keep thinking about this important issue. It's a conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely. And remember, your voice matters in this discussion.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.